everyone, welcome back to Age of Empires 4 commentary. I am Beyond, and today we have a special guest co-caster, Valdemar1902. You can check him out on YouTube and Twitch. He's also offers coaching as well, so his links will be in the description below. So I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Valdemar. I do both streaming and pro-level play, so it's really nice to be invited here by Beyond today, because actually I've been casted a couple of times here, and it's really been great to watch them, so it's just thrilling for sure.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. You're definitely going to provide much more high-level analysis than I would have. So I'll get into the extra introductions of the players themselves. Today we have Lash in the green playing as the Roos, and across the way we have Liquid.Demu as the Abbasid playing in the purple. Valdemar, in this matchup, who do you kind of favor, and then what's your kind of go-to strategy if you're the Abbasid here?
Well, it highly depends on maps and how much bounty you get as the Roos, because the Roos seem to be the stronger opponent here. Whereas the Abbasid, if they do get going for the later stages of the game, once they have the 3 TCs up and running, assuming the Roos goes for 2 TC, it's actually really, really strong. And so it's all about getting to that late game or taking some good early fights. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Roos definitely seem like they are in the strongest position of any civilization at the current moment. They seem a little bit overtuned with their ability to kind of go a safe eco with that Kremlin, and also to spawn an army out of essentially nowhere with the gremlins popping out as well. So they always seem to go that classic 2 TC route and then start that push into that late feudal age, early castle age with those knights and those archers. So interesting to see if we see that from Lash here today. But Lash is also known for some creative strategies, so he might mix it up.
It's going to be very interesting. I am already seeing now a potential OP spawn for the Kremlin. If you take a little bit of a look to the northwest of the base of Lash here, you'll see that there's both deer, gold, stone, berries. These are some of the locations that the Kremlin can be put in, and this is just one of the strengths of playing as the Roos. You can secure some of those high value resources with high income gather rates.
Absolutely. I mean, you are correct. That is a god spawn for the Kremlin. We have the wood line over here. We have plenty of deer, gold, stone, and berries. I think it would all be in range of the Kremlin as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that already. And Lash is doing okay in terms of that bounty. As you can see, the wheelbarrow is already coming out here. And now Demu's going up for the Econ Wing. Do you like the Econ Wing in this matchup?
I think the Eco Wing is probably the best play. Military Wing works as well, but Eco Wing, once you get it up and running, you get the second TC, and later, if you spot that they have a second TC coming as well, you get the third one, and then you're set with a standard rule set, rule of thumb, you could almost call it, for the Abbasid, which is to almost add 1 TC every single time that your opponent goes for a second one. So this is probably the best way to play it. We do see Golden Gate coming out here, which do promote some more aggressive play. I really like this.
Yeah, so Lash, instead of taking the god spawn for the Kremlin and going the standard route, we see the Golden Gate coming out. Now, why would they opt to go Golden Gate here, and why would it make it more aggressive, as you mentioned?
Well, it's kind of funny that he would go for wheelbarrow, because usually when you go for the Golden Gate, you're able to just immediately pop a production building just by spending 100 gold. But you can also just gather the wood you need, and then you have 100 gold already to pop a knight, and you can sell food if you want a delay going on gold. You have so many options with the Golden Gate. This is perhaps one of the best landmarks in the feudal age for all the civs. It's just that the Kremlin is just that tiny notch better, being able to spawn 3 units almost.
Yeah, it seems like the Kremlin would be the safer option if you want to open up more builds into late game and stuff like that. But as you mentioned, Golden Gate would be the early aggression, so luckily for us, Lash is opting into that, which means we'll probably see some early aggression coming out here. And it does look like this Abbasid gold line over here is going to be susceptible to some knights, as it's the forward spawn, which is a little bit unfortunate on that side. But where is their stone? Their stone's all the way back here, so also could be attacked by those early knights if they do decide to come out from Lash. So we'll have to wait and see how Demu decides to try to defend this. But with that Eco Wing, we could assume that they'll be going at least 2 TC, maybe 3.
Yeah, though it is kind of late for him to start going for a second town center here, because Demo is actually going for a really eco start here. He's going for the Fertile Crescent. He's also going to go for the Wheelbarrow, and now he gets the fresh foodstuffs as well. It's a bit of an odd order, because usually you would get the second TC first before getting the fresh foodstuffs. Fertile Crescent, though, should come in a lot earlier as well. So this is really interesting. I'm not really seeing anything too special here coming out from Demo. I would really like to see what Lash is going to do with that Golden Gate, though. I think
Yeah,
he's going to open with a stable, and that's going to be really cool because he already has the 150 gold. So you can get a quick night out here, get the harass going, and since Demo is so late with the second town center, it's going to be great for him to force a bad spawn.
yeah, especially getting this night out, they can definitely start to harass any of these things. And also, as you mentioned, here comes the mining camp for the stone, but that knight should make it across before enough stone is kind of taken by these villagers to actually make this worthwhile. We do see the barracks coming out here, so I'm assuming it's going to be a quick response to hopefully get a spearman out into this line so that Demu can drop down the second TC. But as you mentioned, I'm assuming it's going to be most likely a little bit closer than he might like to be expanding out. If there was no knight coming out, he would probably put it over by this deer pack over here, but it might be more condensed if the knight causes it, right?
Oh yeah, you want to definitely put it on the deer pack. So also you got to notice that there's most of the food for Demo up in the top left corner for him. So it's really important that he does secure that side because otherwise Lash can just prevent any sort of income by going for that early aggression, the rush strategy. For Demo, however, it's gonna be really interesting to see with the TC timings. He's gonna go for the early racks to secure the TCs, which is great because Lash has gone for the knights, but for Fertile Crescent to be worth it, he has to go for 2 additional TCs. Otherwise, it's not worth it. So that's why we want to see 3 TC play here for this to pay off, though sometimes that is prevented.
Yeah, it looks like we do have the Spearman coming out, which will secure at least for the time being against this one knight, but we see 3 archery ranges coming down for Lash, which means he knows the counter is going to be going down, and also a squadron is moving out over here I'll get the boar over here. But it looks like we're having a lot of archers coming in, which is going to cause a lot of issues for Demu, as that's all he really has is a few spearmen for defense, and these archers are going to be able to quickly rip through them and pretty much take them off gold completely.
Yeah, this is almost similar to the typical Knight Archer opener that people go for when they play with French. And so, yeah, this could be devastating. The archers are only there to counter the spearmen that would come out naturally when somebody is going for a stable. We do see the second TC coming out now, and the high aggression coming out from Lash is going to make it really difficult for Demo to go for a valuable third TC, because it does take time for it to pay off. And Lash could just have too good of a grip on Demo for anything to really happen here. So strong opener from Lash for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough, as you mentioned, especially with the food, as the Abbasid are fully dependent on those outside food kind of sources like the berries and the deer. There's not really much that he can have close by. Once these berries kind of give out and these sheep in the middle give out, which he seems like you can never actually click on the sheep over here, which is always difficult. But he has a few, not enough to sustain himself through all of this aggression. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he gets desperate enough to push out for those food resources in the top left-hand corner, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, for sure. We see the third TC is being gathered for. It's moving out the villagers. He's got the spears. So from Lash, we should be seeing some more aggression. He is scouting it, so I'm assuming he's going to be sending his entire army there, though he might be able to get it up already.
Yeah, it looks like Lash is dealing with the spearmen out front here, and once he deals with these, they're playing a nice offensive line, if you will. I know that is more of a U.S. reference. Valdemar, do you follow the NFL in the slightest?
Not at all, I have to be honest with you. We're more soccer fans here
That is
in the EU.
Very fair. I'm also a huge soccer fan as well. I love watching the Premier League. I appreciate you calling it soccer, even though I know it's actually football. So
Well, we know how you Americans are with all the different translations.
it's very, very true, but I appreciate it nonetheless. It looks like he did secure the deer pack over here, which is actually pretty huge for Demu. So able to use those spears as a nice way to cut off those incoming knights. But Lash still has a pretty scary army, and there's not really much here for Demu to defend with if Lash is able to get in on some of these resources.
Yeah, so keep in mind that the TCs act as towers themselves. They're able to produce villages, of course, but they're also able to garrison 10 villages inside, which is more than a standard tower. It deals damage according to the blacksmith upgrades as well. So for Demu here, it's all about keeping this third TC alive. The second one will stay alive for sure, but for Lash, the main goal is to take out that third TC and perhaps add in one of his own. It's not going to take long for Demo to catch up here because the villager production is going to outscale a lot when you have 3 town centers. You can see he's already up 6 villages compared to Lash. And keep in mind, they only cost 2 to 3 villages on food to keep up constant production of. He must not need more than 7 villages for constant production of villages.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. And as you mentioned, it's going to be really interesting to see how Demo can keep this up. It looks like we have a lot of the upgrades coming in for Lash on the back end side. Did secure that blacksmith over here. So interesting to see if we see any siege engineering coming out so he can actually take down this TC, or if he's just going to be doing more and more damage with this army. But he has enough to do a lot of damage, and now he can kind of dive those TCs a little bit better with that +1 range defense. Not going for that, still not going for the ram technology, going for that +1 sealed arrow with those 20 archers out on the map.
Yeah, it's often a bit of a bait when you want to go for the ram tech. You see someone going greedy 3rd TC. It's often a bit of a bait to go for the early siege engineering because, well, you can get rams out early, but they also cost 250 wood, and you want to get 2 to 3 of them before you take out a 3rd TC, for example. Because 2 doesn't really have the punching power, 3 is probably the most optimal. If you go 4, that's overkill. So here, he wants to get rams out, but he also doesn't want to do it too early because if you think about it, he could get 2 rams. Or 3 rams for that matter. That's 750 resources that could have been spent on units. And so building up a mass here is probably better for Lash than to go straight for ram tech.
That's actually super interesting. Do you think, how many knights do you think he'll need? Oh my goodness, that is absolutely brutal though. Taking out a quick 6 villagers. Of course, Demu's still going to have the lead, but 5 villagers do go down, and the ram tech is coming out for Lash. How many knights do you think it would take to actually fully dive a TC like this? Or like take it down without the ram technology?
Well, it would depend on how much support the TC has. So if there's a huge army behind it just firing down with constant damage per second like an archer army, then it's going to be a lot more difficult because knights do still take damage from archers. On the other hand, though, it's probably more about getting archers out than knights, because knights just act as a meat shield. Yes, they have high health and base damage and so on, but they're still countered by spearmen, which is relatively cheap to make. So I think it's probably more of a question of how many archers does he actually have to support a ram push.
Yeah, absolutely. And Demo's doing a good job here of taking out those straggler archers that are crossing the map to kind of force in Demo. Demo's actually building a pretty sizable force on the back end side. He knows as well as you do that he needs to keep up that 3rd TC at all costs, so going to go all in. Did sprinkle in the camel there for those reduction as needed. But I do like this aggression here from Demo with these horsemen, picking up all these kind of rallying troops across the base, and now Lash is going to have to group them up before sending them across the map.
Yeah, so what we can see now is 15 villages are in the lead for Demo here, but this means that Lash has to do something ASAP. Lash does have the army value, but it is very quickly ramping up for Demo, so once this push fails, if it fails, then Demo's going to be heavily in the lead, and then this is going to be a lost game for Lash, considering he did not scale with a 2nd TC.
Yeah, so we do see the magic 3 rams, as you mentioned. 4 is overkill, 3 is the perfect number, so we do have the perfect number coming out. We have horsemen trying to do a little bit of damage on the back end side, but it's going to be these rams versus a very sizable army for Demo. 25 spears and 8 horsemen, including these 4 on the back end side. It looks like Lash is getting a little bit nervous to actually go in and try and deal with these horsemen. So Demo's doing a great job at buying just a little bit more time for this push. The longer this delays, the better it is for Demo at this point. And we do see some auxiliary barracks over here as well for Lash, trying to make sure that he has enough spearmen to actually take down these horsemen pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's all about getting that 1-1-1 comp when you're fighting against somebody who's playing horsemen, spearmen. So you have the archers for the constant DPS, you have the knights to deal with both horsemen and enemy archers, but you also need spears. And it goes for all of the knight matchups that you can have when you're playing Age of Empires 4, because once you add in that spear, the horseman spearman comp starts to really falter, though the numbers here for Demo is actually insane.
Yeah, Demo has
really strong.
Demu has an absolute ton of units. Those villagers are getting those rams down quite quickly, and that full surround is happening. So many spearmen are in, and now the horsemen are doing damage to the backhand side, and it looks like Lash's army is completely evaporated on the backhand side quickly. There's just spearmen left, but there's enough of them, I think, to do enough damage to actually pull this off, and Demu, it looks like he's repairing at the same time while also microing and killing off the ram, and that's going to be really tough for Lash to come back from. But it does have enough archers to actually clean up the remaining pieces. It looks like actually Demu has a sizable amount of archers as well to do the forward damage. But it does look like it's going to be about even. But Demu definitely comes out on top because he has a 27 villager lead and keeps that third TC alive.
He keeps the third CC alive, he keeps the army up. The size of the army is pretty much the same as Lash. Remember, Lash is not scaling. He might have map control, he might have the pocket resources, but in this situation, when Demu has the entire left side where all his food was, the double berry spawn, the double deer spawn, plus relics, woodlines, and so on, it's pretty much going to be impossible for Lash to really do something here. So you can see he's getting desperate.
Yeah, he's starting to dive TCs. That is going to be a lot of damage, but unfortunately for Demu, it does not look like he was able to quickly click over in time. Going to be taking down over 13 villagers, but at this point, it doesn't fully matter. I think Demu is very comfortable with taking those raids. You can't take too many of those head on, but it's going to be totally okay in the forefront because he's sitting on 3 TCs, and the Abbasid are only going to scale later and later. Is floating a lot of gold, so might be thinking about going Castle Age quite soon, because he usually wouldn't float that gold unless he was thinking about going up.
Yeah, we can say that, but he's also missing all the eco upgrades, so perhaps he was just holding a bit back just to not spend all of his resources on eco if he was going to lose that third TC. So there are some decisions to be made when it comes to how you spend your resources. It is... You go ahead and not spend your resources to bank resources per se. Here, it's okay because he already has such a big lead.
Absolutely, and now we have another engage on the bottom side of the map. These horsemen are going to be doing so much damage to these archers. Lash is doing his absolute best to micro these backwards, but there's just so many Abbasid troops here, so many times that these horsemen are going to be able to get in, and all they're doing is being a meat shield for the remaining forces to get in on this remaining Rus force, but it looks like it's going to be Demu taking another W across the map and just streaming these spearmen towards them. They're obviously not the best counter to archers, but they're doing a great job of being a meat shield for the time being.
They're not just being a meat shield, they're also acting as a deterrent for the knights. As you can see, the knights basically did nothing in that fight. It's all about the archer numbers for Lash. Because he didn't add in his own spears, or at least not enough of them, this is making so that horsemen could just charge in on the archers, and then you have the counter right on top of you.
It looks like Lash is going to be going up to that Castle Age, the high trade house, so trying to get a little bit back into this game with maybe some upgrades to actually prevent any future damage. Is there a chance that Lash gets back into this game, even with Castle Age?
Well, with Castle Age, he might get the upgrades needed, but look at Demu, he's already going up himself. He's got the 3 TC, he's got the almost, what is that? Well, it's about 20 villagers lead here. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's really, really looking good for Demu, and it's not looking good for Lash. He might get up really quickly here, but his timing window is pretty much closed. He needs to get the relics.
Yeah, relics need to be going down for Lash quite quickly. Let's see if we see any... Once that second that goes down, do we see a quick transition into building a... Yep, there's the monastery. No, we don't have the monastery going down just yet. So hopefully he'll be getting those in. I'm assuming the archer upgrade is the first and foremost. There it is. And +2 ranged bonus. The only bad thing about the Abbasid, I don't say like bad thing in terms of aging up, but you cannot actually increase the speed of the Abbasid age up. It goes up the same amount of time no matter what happens because it's just a building wing. So you will always outrace an Abbasid to the next age. But that being said, they also have a giant chunky House of Wisdom that you have to kill off instead of just a simple landmark like others.
Yeah, well, it's an accidental good thing that you don't require villagers to build the landmark, so you have the House of Wisdom, because all of those villagers that you would be building the landmark with are all gathering resources, so you can keep up the production just as though you were not aging up.
It's very, very true. And Lash is going to be getting all those upgrades, but did invest in the Knight upgrade and only has 4 on the map. We do also see some men-at-arms coming out as well to provide a little bit of just trying to be some tankiness for the front line for the archers and the hardened spearmen. So I actually do like the switch up. It does seem like it's going to do a little bit better into this army composition over here for Demu, but Demu's economy is just so good right now. 178 out of 200. He's going to be pop cap pretty soon.
Yeah, he's going to be pop cap pretty soon, and that's going to be joyous for Demu. For Lash, going for the Man at Arms is great if your opponent is in Feudal. Though up against the Abbas Dynasty, they can go Camels, and now that Demu is in Castle Age himself, we will definitely be seeing how the Man at Arms just don't scale very well going into Castle Age. So they can be great against a Feudal opponent, but the moment they get to Castle, you are screwed.
It's incredibly true. It looks like Lash is trying to do some damage before any of these upgrades come in for the Abbasid. Is going to be doing a decent job at getting some villager kills, but it's already 30 villagers up at this point, so this is an all-in desperation attempt from Lash. These archers are unfortunately tanking the TC at the current moment, and all of these spearmen are in the faces, deterring these knights as you mentioned before. The men-at-arms are not able to tank nearly enough damage, and now the upgrades are starting to pop, and there goes the archer upgrades, which I think will turn the tide of this battle even more so in the favor of Demu. It looks like Lash does have a sizable amount of archers still, 30 still out on the map, so it is going to be able to kite this army back. It's not going to be GG's just yet, but he's going to have a real tough time at killing off Demu's 42 archers at the current moment.
It's not just 42 archers, it's also 42 archers that might get composite bows, and there is the game getting called from Lash. Demu takes the victory.
GG's. I mean, it was definitely an interesting strategy coming out of Lash. It wasn't the stock standard 2TC Roost build with the Kremlin, so I respect him for doing something a little bit different, but Demu played that super well, and I think the biggest turning point there was those horsemen taking control of the middle of the map and stopping any aggression kind of going forward, and it really prevented them from getting that timing attack that he kind of wanted, and by the time he attacked that third TC, Demu had so much army left ready to fight that.
Absolutely spot on. That's a pretty good way to put it, I would say.
Well, I'll take that. I'll take that as a win. I'm getting a little bit better at this casting thing. I've only been playing Age of Empires for 5 months, but I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, you did great at casting, so I'm excited to have you on in the future. And you can check out Valdemar at all of his links in the description below. He streams on Twitch. What time do you stream on Twitch usually?
Stream pretty early in the morning hours for EU, and that would so be in the evening hours for NA.
Perfect. And then obviously you can check out his YouTube as well, which will be linked. And on his YouTube, he mainly focuses on build orders. So if you're struggling to climb or you want to get to that next tier of your game, would highly recommend his build orders. I've used 3 of them and I've gotten to Platinum 2. Was Gold 1 when I started, so I can definitely endorse that he will get you higher in the ranks. All right, and with that, thank you guys so much. If you did enjoy, please do subscribe and leave a like. And thank you so much again, Valdemar, for joining me, and hope you guys have a great night.